Welcome to Next of Kin, the Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Emma. I'm a British expat living in Dubai, UAE, with my partner and baby girl. Join me on my expat motherhood journey. I'll be discussing different topics each week and we'll be joined by some wonderful guests. Now, if you're a mum, you're short on time, so let's jump right in. Welcome back to episode 11. Can you believe I'm saying episode 11? I really thought I was just going to be doing a 12 episode season. And now we're at episode 11. I feel like I'm just getting going and really enjoying this as a weekly podcast. So I don't think I'm going to stop anytime soon. But how lucky am I to have another fabulous guest on the show? As I said last week, I had written down a list of dream guests when I was trying to come up with an idea for this podcast, and I'd written down Steph. So I'm so glad that she has chosen to come on the show. A bit about Steph first then. So Steph brought Tots Play over to Dubai and she runs these great classes from newborn baby development classes to Discovery Tots. So they're the classes that I went to with Bonnie. And then she's got social tots as well, which is for the little ones that are on the move. Probably the classes I need to go to now with Bonnie. So we have lots of different baby class options here in Dubai, and I do want to explore more of them myself with Bonnie, especially now that I've said I'm going to take a morning a week off from working and spend that with Bonnie. So it's going to be a good chance to check out all these different classes and mummy meetups. But the reason I specifically wanted Steph to join me on the podcast is because these are the classes that I've actually attended and can vouch for, and I always recommend them to any mums that I meet. Actually, a funny story on how I did first meet Steph. I was actually inquiring about the classes. I was emailing back and forth, and then I got cold feet. So I was worrying that I wasn't going to be able to get out of the house. Obviously, all these typical thoughts that go through your head when you've got a 2, 3, 4-month-old. Honestly, I was scared of driving with her. I mean, I was worried she was just going to nap through all the classes. So what would be the point? Ultimately, I chickened out of signing up for them. Steph said no worries at all. She totally understands. But then she popped a competition up on her Instagram to win the classes. And guess what? I won. So I did make it to every class except the last one, but I had an excuse. I was back at work for that. So after all of that, I did make it to all of the classes and we really enjoyed them. The reasons that I really enjoyed Steph's classes, firstly, Steph is just absolutely lovely. She's so genuine. She's just a really nice face to see every week, especially when you're at that stage postpartum with a little one. Also, the contents of the classes, because I would really struggle to know how best to pass that time of day, especially around the sort of 3-month kind of age, where you want to play with them, you want to do all the developmental activities, but they also can't really do that much. So I'd get all sorts of ideas from singing, dancing, baby yoga, sign language, and actually I found the sensory play really interesting, and I ended up buying a few bits that I could then do at home with Bonnie. And what's great is that Steph would change this up each week to keep us entertained. One of the best bits, though, of course, is sitting around the sensory play stations, having a chat with all the other mums, and then going for the coffee afterwards to all complain about our mat leave situations. So that's a little bit about Tots Play. Steph is originally from Liverpool in the UK. She moved across to Dubai in 2020. She's got 2 children of her own, Freddie and Sophia, and her background is actually as a teacher specialising in early years. So child development really is her passion. From this chat, I want to get to know Steph a bit better. I really want to pick up some useful tips on how to play with your baby. Also some tips from a more experienced mum, seeing as she's got 2 that are a bit older. But I'm also super interested to hear what it's been like setting up this company and to get a bit of a behind the scenes and maybe some tips from someone that's a bit further along with setting up their company. So I'm going to hop over to the studio now. Let's get chatting. Hi, Steph. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining me. So tell us, how was your week?
It's been a bit of a busy few days. We only got back from the UK on Thursday. So I feel like the weekend was just, a lot of unpacking, washing, a bit of a boring type of weekend. Been trying to get the kids back into a bit more of a routine. I mean, this week I'm starting properly before they're at school next week. They've not been sleeping great, to be honest, since we've got back. And I feel like can't really be that much jet lag because there's not that much time differences there. But I think because we were there for 7 weeks nearly, so they've had a full-on summer, obviously a lot of late nights, out, busy during the day. So yeah, I've just been trying to slow them down a little bit and
do you have the holiday blues, or was 7 weeks long enough for you to be like, get me back to Dubai?
Yeah, we were ready to come back.
Yeah.
I think the hardest part is that we don't have our own space, so you live in between both sort of sets of families' houses. And that's hard for them as well, that as much as they want to see us and see their grandkids or whatever, 4 of us going into their environments again. We were trying to do 1 week in one house and 1 week in the other, because they do live quite close to each other, which I suppose is a good thing.
Like
we're
us.
not,
yeah,
but,
lucky.
I still felt like we were living out of a suitcase. So it was just like, it was nice, lovely. Obviously, we had really nice, lovely days. Lovely to catch up with family and friends. But we were like, no, let's get back to Dubai. And I mean, it rained most of the time we were there as well.
Yeah.
So,
I know, and everyone kept apologising to me whilst I was back. Like, I'm so sorry about this weather, as if I'm not used to English weather.
I know, exactly.
But also, like, it's kind of what you want. Probably not for 7 weeks straight.
No. Yeah, no, exactly.
But for a week or two, you're like, oh, this is nice.
Exactly. It was like, we were looking forward to, fresh air, a little bit of rain. But yeah, it was, I think, we had maybe 3 or 4 days which didn't rain. And I feel like sometimes with children, it just makes it a little bit harder, because most of the time in Dubai, we are able to have that outdoor lifestyle, and we don't have to worry what the weather's going to be like, to whether we can go to the beach or whether we can, just be out in a park.
So Steph, I'm going to start us off with the 5 quick fire questions again, because I think that worked well with Julie last week. So let's get into these questions.
Fab.
So number 1, what is baby yoga?
Okay, so if you think about yoga in general, that even, adults might do, it all translates a bit like unite and all about relaxation and thinking about your own well-being. So with baby yoga, it's similar to that, how it's all about helping babies' development from a young age, but it's through different poses and different stretches to help baby feel relaxed. And obviously different stretches and poses have different benefits for the baby, but it's obviously something that they would do together with like the mum or nanny. But yeah, there's so many beautiful benefits for baby yoga. I say to mums in class sometimes, to us, it might be a really small stretch. It looks like the baby's not really doing much, but obviously for this tiny newborn or like a few-month-old baby, it's really hard work. And I think if we think how we feel like when we do exercise, a baby's also going through that. So they might be really tired after it. It could be that, they should feel more relaxed, and it might help with a bit more deeper sleep on that day.
Because after your classes, whenever we'd leave, all the babies, apart from Bonnie, obviously, but all the other babies would be sound asleep in their prams because they'd just be shattered.
Yeah, they're so tired, like within that 40-minute class or whatever. And it might only be in 10-15 minutes of like the yoga part. So we have some stretches which are really good for like muscle tone, some more help with it, like building circulation and linking to like the brain development as well. I always say this in class, but we think about how we have a bit of an invisible line, and any sort of pose where our limbs might cross that invisible line.
Like
so
even just putting their hands together in front of them.
Yeah, or we do a lot of diagonal ones, so where you might have your hands and feet trying to touch each other, and that helps, say, like the left side of the brain talk to the right. And then eventually babies, as they get older, they do become more body aware as well, because at the moment, while they are babies, they don't realise that, this hand that's going across me is actually attached to me. And sometimes that's where babies might jump, or it scares them a little bit because they just see suddenly the hands go past and they're like, what's that? But by incorporating and bringing that together, it really helps them build that awareness.
Fab. Okay, number 2, why teach sign language to babies? What's the benefit?
Again, it's all about communication. From when babies are born, you're, as the mum, first of all, obviously you're their like safety blanket, you're their best friend, and babies always want to communicate with you. So even before babies can even start to like babble and not say words properly and then eventually talk, looking at communication and by making certain gestures, it can help with less frustration. So by introducing sign language, they can try, as they get a little bit older, communicate what they want from you, and it builds that sort of two-way conversation. So you can start introducing signs in your daily routine. So it's about not saying, oh, I've got to teach my baby sign language. It's about trying to build it into your everyday routine and using signs that you do on a daily basis with your baby. So to begin with, we usually say between 6 and 12 signs. And we have our parent-orientated ones, which are things that we think as parents we want to ask our baby. So it might be, do you want more milk? Or shall we change your nappy? So it's what we're asking them in a way. So it's just, if you're doing that even like a couple of times a day and you're just doing the sign for milk or more, your baby will get used to seeing them, and they're not going to be able to obviously sign it straight away. But as they get to roughly, let's say like 9 months plus, if they have seen it consistently, that you will start seeing it. It's not going to be perfect. As when you think about speech, you don't say the words properly to begin with, but you will start to see some type of gesture that can relate. And then if you use a lot of positive praise and do it back, then they'll relax into it and understand that, yes, like mummy is understanding what I'm trying to ask for. And then you've got, as I say, the child orientated ones, which is more about their interests. So it might be, teddy bear or ball or playing. So it just really does, I say, start that communication from a very young age. Research also shows that it does help with speech development a lot quicker than what a baby may not have done sign language. I'm not saying you have to do it, but I think some parents' worries are that by doing sign language from a young age, it would have the opposite effect and delay speech development. But because babies become a lot more relaxed and they've sort of started that communication process, and their brain and all the sort of mental sides of learning how to communicate has already started within the brain, then that's where speech can evolve a bit quicker.
That's really interesting, and something I found with Bonnie. So the only one that she's picked up on is all done, but we find that so useful for, especially when you're feeding and she can just say all done to you. First time she did it, she signed to me pretty much as soon as I put her breakfast down, she signed all done, milk. She's never signed milk since that, but I thought that was so funny, and I was like, why have I taught her this? But it's really useful, like at the end of a meal, that she can just say all done, and it stops that frustration with me trying to shovel more in her mouth and her getting really annoyed. But she does do it in her own way, so that's important that you'd said about just watching out for how they're signing, because she doesn't do the all done sign that I do. She just sort of waves with me me with one hand, but in a very intentional way. So we found that really useful.
You know what she's trying to say, and she knows that you're understanding it, which then obviously will make her happy. And
now, so she is 10.5 months, and I can easily just say to her, are you all done, and do the sign, and then she'll do it back to me, or she'll just carry on. So I do think it's really useful, because she wouldn't be able to talk at this age. Okay, number 3, why is tummy time so important? Because when you have a newborn, everyone keeps going on about tummy time to you constantly, and you feel a bit guilty when you've got a baby that just doesn't want to be in the tummy.
And it can be a bit scary as well. I do feel like we, particularly on our baby development course with our like younger babies, we have week 3 is focused around tummy time in a way, and it's to try and make it a bit more engaging and fun for our babies, to give mums an idea of to try something different at home. Because even I felt like, when I had my children, that you just told that they've got to be on the tummy for so many minutes, and you should try and do it, and it's going to slow down the development they get flathead syndrome and things like that. I remember with Sophia, my first one, it was just I'd just put on a blanket and and it's like they cry, like it's like I didn't really know what I was doing at that time when I was first time mum. So it is obviously to build up the muscles, make your baby stronger, particularly the back and the neck muscles, the head, which all then helps with, building the muscle tone up for when they're going to try and crawl, be able to sit up, eventually walk. So it's good to start it, and it only has to be a couple of minutes a day, not a long time. And I always say to mums, it's got to be a positive experience for you and your baby. If your baby is crying, you're not going to enjoy it, because you're worried thinking, but you're thinking I need to do it. Exactly. You both get stressed out. So it is just a few minutes a day, but also make it engaging. It doesn't have to be on like a floor or a blanket. If you want to do that, there are ways, put a toy in front of them that they can look at. Mirrors are a really good idea. Babies love looking at themselves, seeing their reflection. But for our like tiny babies, and even from like 1, 2, 3 weeks old, it can be on you as well. So most of us probably do it all the time where, you know, particularly in those early days, your baby's just on you constantly. So just lean back a little bit more or lay flat on the, whether you're on the sofa, whether you're in bed, that is still tummy time. And then as the weeks go on, you could try and lift them on your legs a little bit, like call their name, sing a song. So anything where they're hearing your voice, they know your voice again, you're their safe space, you're their security blanket. So, you know, any just little things to just try and encourage them to like lift the head a little bit. Well, it's a really good starting point. But yeah, try not to be scared of it and don't feel like it has to be a long time.
And it doesn't have to be on the floor.
Doesn't have to be on the floor. No, it can be on your tummy. Can be on like your, I don't know, where you lie on your back and your knees are raised a little bit and your baby can be like on your knees. So, you know, you're still holding them, but they're still on their tummy. Yeah,
because there was a phase where Bonnie didn't really like being on her tummy. So I thought we weren't doing enough tummy time. Yeah. And you start worrying as a parent, thinking like they're just never going to walk because they've not had tummy time. Like you really catastrophize. Yeah. And now that you're saying that, I realised that we were doing it all the time because she was on me. She liked to be held in that way. Yeah. And she always had her head up. Yeah. She's got no chill. She wouldn't just relax her head. Exactly. She was literally doing it all the time.
Yeah.
How funny.
Yeah.
Okay, number 4. What advice do you have for a new mum who's finding it quite scary to leave the house and get out with the baby on her own?
I think, first of all, you've got to just listen to yourself as well. Listen to you and your own body. Don't feel pressured to go out straight away. But also just try it once. Just try and maybe set yourself a little bit of time and think, okay, tomorrow morning or tomorrow I'm going to try and, you know, have a shower, get dressed, sort the baby. Like I'm going to just try and
small milestones.
Yeah, just like give yourself little targets like to do. And I think you've got to try and think that everyone feels that at some point. I remember feeling terrified like the first time leaving the house, and it was actually my like husband who encouraged me to go to a baby class with my first one. And I think he was just worried that I was just going to be like stuck at home all day and, you know, thinking about my mental health. And Sophia was a January baby as well. So she was in the UK. We were in the UK when she was born. So obviously January is a bit of a
it's not the best
hard month, isn't it? And it's dark and rainy most of the time and everyone's really sad after Christmas. So I'm glad he did encourage me. Yeah, don't feel pressure to do it, but think there's always support out there. No one's going to judge you. You know, if your baby cries, if your baby needs feeding, if your baby's screaming, there'll always be someone there to help. I feel like we are such a good community of like mums. Everyone is going to help each other, and you, just one person, like, you know, offering you, you know, a wipe or a muslin, or, you know, you might, you know, but just think you've made the effort, and it might just be going to like a coffee shop or trying to get to a baby class, just going across the road, exactly, like just walking, like when the weather's nice.
I used to tell myself, what's the worst that can happen? Because you do catastrophize, don't you? Yeah. And I had to remember that the worst that's going to happen is you might just cry hysterically and we come home.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the worst.
That's it. Every baby's going to cry at some point. Yeah. Everyone's gone through it. There's no perfect. No one can say that they've had a baby and they've just had this perfect world where they've gone out. So yeah, just trust yourself. Just give it a go, and just know that there is support out there, and don't be afraid to ask for help. You know, wherever you might be, whether you're walking and you see someone else in the park, or, you know, just don't be afraid.
Okay, number 5. What are your favourite baby books?
I love the That's Not My, you know, book collection. One, because I think you can build a lovely story out of it, but obviously there's a lot of sensory experience as well for babies. I feel like they've been out for years, haven't they? There's so many different types now, but I do think it's a good like classic series in a way, because you can build up vocabulary on whether it's like the different animals, but also you've got the different textures in there. And I just don't think they'll ever get old.
So So before we dig into Tots Play and what you're doing now, can you tell me a bit more about your journey on how you became a mum? You've got a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old, and you had them back in the UK, right?
Yeah, that's right. So obviously from Liverpool in the UK, was teaching been a teacher over 10 years now. And when I met my husband, to be honest, Sophia, my 8-year-old, she did come as a bit of a shock. It wasn't, me and my husband had not been together that long really. But I do believe that everything does happen for a reason. Definitely. And I believe in fate. And even the way sort of me and my husband met, I believe like it was meant to be and things are meant to happen. So even though she was a bit of a shock, obviously I was delighted as well at the same time. Yeah. And I'd not long lost my mum it was just about 18 months before. And I do believe that she was sent to me in a way to help me, and I never found out whether I was having a boy or girl, but I think deep down I was like convinced she was going to be a girl, because I was thinking, we're going to have this mother-daughter relationship just after losing my mum, and she was.
That's so special.
But yeah, so we had Sophia, and then a few years later, Freddie came along.
So if I cast your mind back then 8 and 4 years ago, what was the reality of having a newborn like versus your expectation at the time? Was it what you thought it was going to be like?
No. And even particularly when I think with Sophia, as a first time mum, it was a shock. And, the hospital were amazing. I had quite a great pregnancy, to be honest. I was 13 weeks pregnant before I even found out I was pregnant. So
wow.
I never had any more. I missed that first trimester.
So jealous.
That first trimester was gone. I had a great pregnancy. But I remember like the day, we were in hospital for one night. And when we got home, I just remember thinking, okay, what do I do with this baby? Particularly the first bath stands out. We had this baby bath, and I feel like my husband, we were both trying to hold her. Yeah. And she was so slippery, and I was like, oh my God, how do I do this?
Yeah.
And even, you have health visitors come, and for the first few days someone comes out. The care was good, but then looking back, I think after having Freddie as well, I do feel like there was a lot of pressure, particularly around the feeding, breastfeeding. I did want to breastfeed, and I did try, and I did actually get 3 months out of Sophia. However, I struggled a lot. I was constantly getting mastitis. It got to the point where I actually collapsed one day. I was in so much pain, got rushed to hospital, and it turned out that I'd had this really big abscess that I built up because she was tongue-tied, and that wasn't caught at the beginning either. Yeah. So obviously, and she was, you talk about Bonnie, how she just loves milk and feeding, and I think Sophia was the same. I feel like she's just constantly on me, but obviously looking back, she wasn't getting enough. Yeah. Because of the tongue tie. And then obviously it just built up, and the doctors, you couldn't really get an appointment. They just kept just re-prescribing me antibiotics without even seeing me. So I was just, you trust them, don't you? Particularly you just think what they say. I was taking it. Anyway, cutting a long story short, I ended up having to have surgery because it got that big. You couldn't even just drain it out. So I was in hospital for a couple of weeks. Wow. And luckily, my husband's teacher as well, it was over the spring break. And obviously she just had to go in the bottle. He just had to give a formula. And she took it fine, I don't think, to begin with. But I always remember laying in this hospital bed and the infant feeding team coming down to being so you're ready to go and breastfeed again? And I was just no. I remember just feeling awful. Yeah. I had this drip on me, I was still getting things drained, and I was thinking, no, but then I did feel guilty because I was oh, should I go back? But luckily my husband was there, and he was no, she's not going back. She took the bottle fine. Steph needs to get back to normal as well. So it did feel like there was a lot of judgment. And then when it came to having Freddie, I think it was in the back of my mind that, I don't want to go through all that again. However, there was still that bit of mum guilt there, I did breastfeed Sophia, so let's just try again. So I did. But then a week later, I got really ill again, and I could tell all the signs were coming back. So I just remember feeling awful. I think I probably was getting a bit like depressed with Freddie. I did feel a lot different after having Freddie than with Sophia. And again, it was only hearing the words from my husband when I think the health visitor was around, and she was trying to help me feed through like mastitis again or whatever. And he was like, my wife is nearly at breaking point and I didn't want to see her go through that. Like, I'm worried about her. Like, the baby's fine.
Yeah, thank God he stepped in at that point.
Yeah, because I do feel I would just be like, you're okay.
Yeah.
Because of what, you're emotional anyway, aren't you? You're just so sleep deprived.
And you can't think straight
No, you
about
can't.
feeding.
No.
There's something about feeding that I find with all mums that I don't think anyone's ever had a straightforward journey with
I
it.
don't have, I think.
You just can't think straight when it comes to it.
Exactly. And I think me hearing him say that was like probably a relief, but also like, yeah, actually he's right. I probably am, like, because as I say, I would feel like, oh, if Freddie cried or he wanted to feed me all the time, I remember thinking, oh, why? Like, I remember not enjoying it, whereas I did with Sophia. So to hear him say that, I thought, actually, yeah, this is serious. And I do feel like her mood actually did change with me. She was so helpful and lovely at first, but then as soon as we said that, she was a little bit, I don't know.
Why do people judge?
I know.
It's the weirdest thing that people judge about how you're feeding a baby.
Yeah.
As long as they're getting fed.
I know, exactly.
And we all say this, and yet there's still so much judgment, whatever you do.
Yeah, exactly. So as I say, I can't fault the care, and, the hospital were great. And Freddie's pregnancy was more difficult than Sophia's, but the labour was actually easier. I had a water birth with Freddie, where Sophia's was just normal. And Freddie was actually, he was £10, 9.5 when he was born. So he was a huge baby. He was breech right until the end. I was about to have an ECV. Then I was like booked in for a C-section, but then he just kept turning until the very moment. So luckily it didn't. But yeah, it was like, thank God it was in the water. That's all I can say for a natural, because I don't know if I got. I remember the midwife taking him and being like, oh, he's a big one. And the baby that she had delivered before him was only like £4 something. So it was like more than double.
Wow.
But yeah, no, so I can't fault the care, but I still think there is a lot of judgment out there, which doesn't need to be, because as you say, it's constantly talked about, and as long as the baby is feeding and grown up happy and healthy, then you shouldn't be made to feel guilty whatever path you choose to go down.
I mean, at the moment I was thinking about this last night actually, because I keep saying about how I want to move Bonnie onto a cup now instead of a bottle, because I've spoken to Lisa from Lullabies. But I keep thinking about this, and then I was looking at her yesterday, and she is so happy when she gets her milk. She loves it so much, and I was like, why am I thinking like this at the moment?
Yeah.
It's because we're hurtling towards her first birthday at the moment. And before I was like, okay, 6 months is the cutoff, 8 months is the cutoff. And now I'm like, well, surely I can't keep breastfeeding past a year. Yeah. I'm just feeling like that because of the judgment, really, aren't I?
Exactly.
There's no reason I can't.
There's no reason you can't, exactly. You can.
So, it's something
and
that's
just
really
everyone's
front of my
journey
mind.
is different, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you just keep doing it. Well, as long as you're happy and Bonnie is happy, then
exactly.
you shouldn't be given a time.
But anyway, so that was back in the UK.
Yeah.
And then you moved over in 2020 when Freddie was 1.
Yes.
Okay, and what brought you to Dubai to start with?
So to be honest, I say we're both teachers. I've lived abroad before. I've taught in Spain, and I did a couple of summer seasons in Greece as kids club, reps, things like that. So I have had a bit of living abroad and loved it. My husband has always wanted to have a go at teaching abroad, but it's never really had the opportunity. And so it was something that we spoke about, and we were like, if the opportunity come up, then let's give it a go. It didn't have to be Dubai or the Middle East, but then we actually came to Dubai only for a couple of nights as part of our honeymoon, and we were only here for 2 days. And I was actually surprised at how many families were on the flight. Because I'd never thought of Dubai as a family
just for the
holiday.
right?
Exactly. It's all Instagram, all the celebrities. So I was actually surprised. And one of Neil's friends, who's lived in Dubai for over 15 years, had a daughter the same age as Sophia. Sophia was only 2 at the time when we were here. And he met us, showed us around a few places for the day. And then, I say in 2020, he sort of messaged and was like, I know you and Steph have thought about, living abroad, teaching abroad. Don't know whether it's the right time or you're still considering it, But I know there's going to be some teaching vacancies coming available like for the next academic school year. Here are the details if you want to apply for it. So it was just left like that. So he was like, what do I do? And I was like, well, there's no harm in filling an application form in. Let's just see what happens. And at that point, I'd only just gone back after maternity leave with Freddie, but I'd left my previous school. So I was just doing like supply teaching. I was in the process of thinking about sort of doing like baby classes over in the UK. So I was like in between jobs. So we was like, fill the application form in. So I was like, yeah, okay. And then it got down to like the final 3, and then it was getting a bit like more real. And again, we just sort of said, right, if you get the job in Dubai, we'll move to Dubai. If you don't, I'll look at thinking about starting classes and doing business over there. And then obviously got the job. So again, I was thinking the children were only young then. So I say Freddie was only 1. Sophia was just turning 4. So she was only about to start like reception school in the UK. But then obviously then COVID hit. So it was like, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? We were excited and we'd always thought, right, it's a 3-year contract to begin with. Let's just give it a go. It's an adventure. The children are young. It wasn't. I think it'd be more difficult if they were a lot older and, you know, they were more settled in school. You were taken away from friends. But again, I think like as teachers as well, and, you know, you work in some schools where children have not even been like outside the city or part of the city that, you know, I've taught in some like more deprived areas in the UK. I think like it's important for children to like go on holiday or just go and see new things. So I was like, while they are young, if we're just giving them an adventure for 3 years, let's just go. And again, what's the worst that can happen? If we really hate it, we can move back home. So we decided to come, and obviously luckily it did happen. It was very much of a whirlwind. So I think we had about 6 weeks to like try and pack the house up, move, say bye. But I think we're happy with the decision that we made. And again, the 3 years is actually just like rose up like last week or whatever. It was like the 13th of August we moved.
And you're still here.
And we're still here. So we're still here. And I think you hear a lot of people like that, don't you? People I speak to. Yeah, we're coming for 2 years.
I was just going to do a year, maybe 2. And I think we're past that already.
Yeah.
Can I ask you then, as a mum that's a bit more experienced, you've got the older kids, but also as a teacher, what are your thoughts on bringing up the children in Dubai compared to the UK?
I love it. And I think, again, you've got the education side of things. There's so much more. The facilities in schools are fantastic. But also there's just so much to do. It was like the outdoor lifestyle as well that drew us here for most of the year, like for sort of 10 months of the year. 9-10 months. We are pretty lucky, aren't we? We can't be outside the majority of the time. I love how they've got friends from lots of different cultures. Like 2 of Sophia's best friends from her school are from Iran. You know, she's got friends from Jordan. I just love how, it's so international. It's one of the safest places I've ever brought up my children. And actually, going back to the UK, it just proves that a little bit, doesn't it? Not proves it, but
I felt that the first time I went back and I was walking down like Hammersmith High Street and I was like, oh my God, I really don't feel safe. But I've lived in Hammersmith for like 3 years before that.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And just think, even for like, there's women like just going for walks, like you see like within our community, women just on their own walking out like on these like dark like
which is the opposite of what you think when you're moving to Dubai, because you're moving to the Middle East and you're like, will I be able to do anything as a woman? But,
exactly. And that's what everyone says, isn't it?
Can I even drive?
Yeah, exactly. But there's just so many opportunities for children. There's so much for them to do. I say the sort of extracurricular things like sports is just, the facilities are second to none. And as I say, there's the cleanliness of Dubai. I feel like everyone is a lot more friendlier as well. Like, people are grateful to be here no matter what culture, like where they're coming from. I think it's opened Sophia's eyes that she's grateful for the life that we've got.
And that's good that they're grateful and not just taking it for
because
granted.
I think people do think that children can become spoiled and grow up in a bit of a Dubai bubble. But I'm quite happy for them to be in this bubble at the moment. I feel like there's less judgment. I feel like as they get older in the UK, it's all about image as well, isn't it? And particularly as you get to teenagers, you've got to have this brand of clothing or these trainers. And
are you worried about that being in Dubai as a teenager and all the like wealth around them?
Because I feel like it's more in the UK. I don't think there's judgment as much here. I feel like if it was in the UK, like you might get bullied for not having the same, like, I don't know.
You just have to be a
like
sheep
Jordans
and
or whatever
all
it is now.
have the same thing, right?
Whereas I feel like people, it's not like that here. So, I am. I think it's a great place to bring up children.
That's good. That's reassuring for me to hear.
Yeah, definitely.
And did you work as a teacher over here?
I did, yeah. So
how was it as a teacher over here compared to your previous schools?
Again, there was just different challenges, I suppose. Less behaviour problems. I feel like there was more respect in some ways, but sometimes because there were a lot of different cultures in your classroom, obviously some cultures have a higher standard or what they expect like for learning. And I was teaching FS2, so these were 4 and 5 year olds. But you can see how education was really important, like even from that age. And there'd be children who had tutors, and you could see like really starting off. So as a early years teacher and on the UK curriculum, it was a British school, you're trying to persuade parents that children don't need that yet. Don't worry about they're still learning through playing. They're still getting all the phonics. They're still learning a lot, but you don't need to go straight into it. And again, the facilities were a lot more. A lot more. Better. I mean, you still have issues with glue sticks and all the things that go on, but it was a nice community. I feel like sometimes you miss the small, like, not village school, but like where there might only be 2 classes in a year. Like in the UK, you might just have a primary school where everyone knows each other, and schools can be really big over here. So sometimes that was a bit challenging, but overall it was a nice experience. And I do still dabble in it, even though I left last summer. I still do supply every now and then. I think it's hard to step away from it completely. It's hard, but there's a lot of like positives and benefits, and you get to meet a lot of gorgeous children from all over the world as well, which is great.
So what made you want to set up Tots Play?
Again, thinking about when you're a mum, I think everything changes when you're a mum, doesn't it? And you're trying to fit around your family life. Part of it was because I taught for 10 years and I was just ready for a change. To try and build around your family life is difficult. Really as hard. You were talking about your job a couple of podcasts ago, how it's not really a 9 to 5 job. No. So I think that you still get people that do think that teachers are only in, like, say, 9 till 3:30 or whatever, and then they don't take anything home. And particularly when I first had Sophia, I would try and sort of be like, right, okay, I'll stay a bit later tonight to get all the marking done, so I'm not bringing anything home. But then I was only getting home like about 10 minutes before like her bath and bedtime. Yeah. So then I tried to flip it where I would try and leave a bit earlier, and I would bring all like my books home to Mark and then do it when she was in bed. But then I could be up to like 11, 12, midnight marking books. So then I was just exhausted. So you just weren't getting that balance. So I think it was always still in the back of my mind that I just really want to give this a go and just give it a change. And again, it was like, what's the worst that can happen? Like, I can always go back to teaching. I've always got that there. Yeah. But at the moment, let's try and make this business work around my own children. It was also something that I'm really passionate about. So it's sort of still within teaching in a way. I'm just teaching mums as such in a way, but also it's still, instead of thinking about like child development, it was looking at baby development. So it was just tweaking a bit of like my training and, learning a bit more. And while I say Freddie would start school properly next week, so it's trying to build it around where I can be a little bit more present and help with school pickups, or go to watch his winter concert without feeling nervous going into like my line manager asking, oh, can I have like an hour off so I can go and watch a show? Just being my own boss in a way and not having to answer to everyone else.
And have you found that balance that you were looking for?
Not yet, I would say. Because again, I think it links to when you work for yourself, sometimes you're harder on yourself, aren't you? And I think I'd need to try and organise my time a bit, or like plan my time a bit better. So to make sure I do fit it in, because sometimes I'm trying to do too much at once, because then you've got the business head on where I know this needs to be done, I've got to get this done, this. But I do need to be like, right, these are the days I'm running my classes. This is going to be like my deep clean and resource organising day, and then my admin side. Time blocking, yeah, you spoke about doing it about
I'm still trying to work on that.
That's it, and I feel like I've been working on that for a while, but
my problem is I come up to the time that I'm like, right, now I'm meant to be doing this, and I'm like, oh, I don't feel like it, I'll do something else.
Exactly.
So I'm not sticking to it at the moment. I'm not doing very well.
I think that's my problem as well. Like, I need to just have it, like, I've got this, this big calendar and this big whiteboard in my office, but I need to be like, no, this is I've definitely got to follow it. And then it's easy to just be like, no, I really want to get this done. And then I've not gone and picked up Freddie, or I've not done the school run, because I get stuck into something and I'm like, I don't want to stop doing it now. But then I need to remind myself that the whole point of doing it is to try and work around the family life. So I feel like it has been challenging at times.
What surprised you then? What's been a big challenge in setting up your own business? Because obviously I need to know all the tips when it comes to setting up your own business.
To be honest, I think for me, I was a bit scared about networking. I know you spoke about networking before.
It's so scary.
It is.
But then it's actually not when you get going.
I know, exactly. It's just that initial putting yourself out there, isn't it, as you say? I feel like it looks like that I'm always on my phone, like the whole like social media side of things. And I feel like, I was on my personal Instagram, not all the time, but it's even things I've learned a lot, like how you need to, it's all about hashtags and, times to post, and I've learned a little bit more about that, actually.
I think you're quite good at social media. That's definitely one of your strengths.
I feel like I've got a little bit better. Like, at first I wasn't, but I've tried to, because I feel like I'm a confident person when I know what I'm doing. When like in the classes, like I love doing the classes. I'm in like my happy place then, and like I know what I'm talking about, and I enjoy being with the mums and the babies. And when I might post a live on Instagram about what we're doing, I can, I'm quite confident then. But probably inside I'm a little bit, like, I hate my voice, I hate doing this. And it's getting to know who is good for your business, or getting the right market.
So interesting that you say this. This keeps coming back up for me.
Yeah,
is that,
and I'm still learning.
Yeah, knowing who's useful or who's a good contact, or kind of time wasters as well.
Yeah, that's true. I think, I've had so many people, probably like you, who just come into like your inbox on Instagram and say, and I think I'm a people pleaser. I need to learn how to be a bit more, not ruthless, not in a horrible way, but being like, actually, no, like, we can't really help each other. It's not for me. I think in obviously going to like my business side of things with like baby classes, obviously, as you know, maternity leave is really short here in the UK. So I found that challenging, as in you want to build up that relationship, and I get a look, like, all the mums have been gorgeous from when I first started the classes. I just want to like make them feel welcome, enjoy the classes, give them as many tips what they can then, obviously, when they have to go back to work, that they can either like show their nanny or like know to do themselves. I feel like obviously if maternity leave was a little bit longer, you'd have more time, and like the rotation of sort of not like new mums coming through would maybe be less, but and I'd feel like I'd maybe supported them a bit longer, or they got more out of it. But on the flip side of things, I've had really lovely feedback from the mums who have come to my classes, and particularly with, the baby development course, which is from newborn, and I do have babies come from like 1 week old, 2 week old babies. And
it's actually, from a mum's point of view, it's actually really hard to find classes to go with with them at that age, actually. And you want to just get out of the house.
That's it, and that's what I was just going to say. Like, a lot of the mums, the feedback is, I'm just so grateful that, because I know I don't get a lot of maternity leave, I want to make the most of either trying to go to these places with them and getting out with them to a baby class and trying to learn something, or just having that time to meet other mums and other babies, because you then can start like your own friendship group then, and that's where you do make a lot of friends. And going back to my own experience, I'm so glad that my husband did push me to go to, I think it was baby massage. Looking back, I think that really helped me, like, mentally, having those couple of mums there. And at times I say to mums, you know, your baby might sleep through the class, but that's fine. Like,
you're not really
you've
there
got help,
for them.
exactly.
You're there for you.
You're helping their development. But if they've done a little bit of yoga or like massage, just think of it like you've been able to get out of the house. You've made that effort, and you've got a group of mums here that you might cry to them, you might laugh with, and it could be over, you know, like dirty nappies, you know, again, who's like the bad sleep that you've had that night. But it's just nice to talk and relate to someone that is going through exactly the same thing. Going back to the question at the beginning that you asked about advice of just trying to put yourself out there, just like give it a go, but you've got to feel ready. Obviously your body's got to feel ready, but it's not as scary as what it can be.
Is it still scary second time round, or is it just when you're a first time mum? But you kind of forget how tiny little babies are, don't you? Whenever you see a newborn baby, they're so tiny. So is it still scary?
I still felt scared, and there was just under 4 years between mine, and I do feel like a lot of new like products have come out, and you know, like things have changed, and like, oh, you can do this just and you can't, and in 4 years. So I was a bit like, oh yeah, like, can I do this? Or I did this with Sophia, and then, but I think you do become a lot more, well, she survived and happy, and they just have to build in your routine. You are a bit more laid back, I think.
Well, let's get more into that advice before we get kicked out of this studio. We've just seen someone walk past. But my mum lemma for this week is going to be to ask you for more advice around how we can play with our babies when they're really little, because when they're like 2-3 months old, the days can get quite lonely despite you not actually being alone, and it's quite hard to think of things to do. You're like, right, I've read a book, that took 30 seconds, right? Is it nap time yet? What do we do now? So give us some ideas for play.
Think about what you enjoy, like yourself. It might be what type of music you like. Bring your interests into what you can do with your baby, and it might be dancing, playing games to a particular song. One thing I am going to bring up is that you don't need to spend a fortune on toys for
that's something I was going to ask you, if there was any specific toys.
There's so many things. We call it treasure baskets in Tots Play, and I feel like there is, again, a lot of pressure. There's all these branded, you know, things that you can have, and whether it be a certain type of pram or like, you know, the sleep pods or, you know, things like that.
You feel like you have to have these because they're marketed as must-haves, aren't they?
Exactly.
And I've realised all those must-haves you don't need.
And the same with like mats, like this is going to help them roll over more, or
oh my goodness, I spent so much time trying to decide which play mat to buy, and it has not mattered at all.
I know, exactly. And you know, I did the same, like even with Fred, as I said, things are different. I remember buying, you know, the Mamaroo chair, like cost a fortune. I think it was like as a present, but like this is what we chose. And again, he was a big baby, so he couldn't go in it that long anyway because of his weight, but he was probably in it for maybe 5 minutes at a time. Like, he didn't like it, hated it.
So you'd recommend a lot cheaper. To not get all those expensive things?
Like as I say, thinking about tummy time, you don't have to buy one of the tummy time toy rollers that they can lie on. Again, they're lovely, they'll have useful things on there. Things that do, like, which we use in class, are foil blankets, which is great because babies love the reflection of it. You can use lights with it, the noise and the texture, the noise it makes. That can be a good one for tummy time. I've known a lot of babies, and when mums have bought them after my class, saying like, oh, they would just sit on that for like hours, like, and they just put a few toys in. But also have a look around your house, you know, things like sponges, any sort of kitchen would be a great, like, kitchen equipment, whether it's like a shiny, you know, big ladle or spoon,
or a sieve, because it's
sieve,
the texture,
exactly. A different, like, scourer. You might have a like a I want to say like a, you know, a different brush, like a nail brush, like those thick ones that you can get. There's mirror, if you've got a mirror. There'll be a collection that you like of different things in your house that babies will love. Obviously, you're not going to choose like a sharp
no knives,
please. But I say shiny bowls, different sponges, scourers. Babies just love the textures. I always talk about like the sheer scarves. You might have one already.
Bonnie loves those at the moment. And doing peekaboo with that.
Peekaboo. Babies know that you're still there, because babies do get that fear in a way. They don't realise that if they can't see something, they think it's gone forever.
Yeah, the
object permanence.
Right,
So by having a bit like a sheer material is going to help prevent that, because they can't fully see you, but they can still see that you're there. But like, oh, mummy's gone for a minute, but I know she's there. And then, oh yeah, she is there. She's coming back.
So they're genuinely surprised.
Yeah, and again, that can help with like, you see how babies do as they get older. If you go into a different room for a second, and they might still be with dad, but mummy's walked out the room and they might think you're gone forever. And you see how the emotions comes goes really sad. So it's good to play those types of games. There are so many things that you can do. Swinging and bouncing, which we call is really good for the vestibular system. And that's like within the inner ear. So as babies develop, any types of bounces, swing and movements, dancing, all helps with balance, coordination, spatial awareness. So even though you might just think you're swinging your baby or you dance around with them, it's really helping the development and just adds a bit more fun. And as you say, it doesn't have to be a baby song. Put your favourite music on, whatever you're listening to.
Yeah, because the time will come where they just want to listen to theirs, so make the most of listening to your own music.
Exactly. Instead of, Cocomelon or Baby Shark or all those types of things. Yeah, just have a look around your house. Don't feel like you've got to spend a fortune. As I said, the foil blankets I do feel like are good. And one other toy I would say is, again, what I use in class, they're like mini light spinners. Again, you could stand them up, different ways you can use them. You could have them as like a aid for tummy time, like because a baby will focus on it.
Yeah.
For like tracking baby's vision. So you can just move from side to side.
Do you have a recommendation for me today? Tots Play? It has to be your class,
surely.
I know. I will recommend those because I've been to baby development.
Yeah, I love
and
them.
I wish we'd done the the newborn.
You were at Discovery Tots,
we went Discovery
but
Tots.
the baby development,
baby development I wish we'd done because they wear the cap and gown for graduation, and so I wish we'd gone just for that moment.
I know.
So I'm definitely going to recommend to you the Discovery Tots. I will put everything in the description below.
Yeah.
But Steph, thank you so much for joining. It's been really nice to chat.
It's been brilliant. Thank you so much.
And to everyone else, you can find Steph on @TotsPlay
Dubai DL. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Thank you everyone for listening. You can find me on @nextofkin.ae. Please do follow along and subscribe, and I will speak to you next week.